Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest news on Boris Johnson's resignation honours list and how it might cause Rishi Sunak a bigger problem than he first thought. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So, 8 months after Boris Johnson stepped down, there's all sorts of loose threads still to clear up, not the least of which is when we're going to find out what happened with his inquiry. I don't know. But his resignation honours list, which shouldn't even really exist if we're honest, is still being processed. Now, part of it includes elevation to the House of Lords for actually a number of people that you may not think are terribly suitable, but 3 of them are MPs, allies of his, and they're currently sitting MPs. Now, you cannot be a member of both Houses of Parliament at once, so to accept the peerages, these 3 MPs, which includes Nadine Dorries, would have to surrender their seats in the Commons. Now, they're perfectly happy to do this. But if this is done before the election, that is a problem for Rishi Sunak because it means by-elections before he's ready, assuming he'll ever be ready. I mean, I'll discuss the specifics of each by-election in a moment, but suffice to say for now, he would not want to fight unnecessary elections, really. But there was a suggestion that the 3 MPs could defer their elevations until after the general election. And this does seem to have sort of happened before, but clearly not quite under the same circumstances. Because according to a report in the Times this week, in fact, I think it was yesterday, Rishi Sunak has been advised by the House of Lords Appointments Committee that it would not be constitutionally proper to let the MPs defer in this way. In other words, once these appointments go through, and they've got no problem with these appointments, by the way, once these appointments go through, either they accept the peerage and have to stand down, triggering by-elections, or they refuse the peerage and remain MPs. As it happens, all 3 have said that they intend to take their seats in the House of Lords, even if it means unfortunate by-elections for Rishi Sunak. In fact, you would imagine that Nadine Dorries at least would delight in the dilemma for Sunak. So if the Times is reporting accurately here, and if there's no way for Sunak to bully the committee into doing what he wants, bear in mind Johnson did in the past, so it is possible Sunak could somehow strong-arm them. But what sort of trouble does this pose for the Prime Minister if he can't? Well, let's go through each constituency one by one. So we'll start with Madnads, darkest Bedfordshire, basically. Apologies for anyone from Bedfordshire. Current polling would suggest that the Conservative candidate would hold this seat. Okay, safe Tory seat. It's one of the seats due for demolition with the boundary changes, but the by-election would happen before they take effect. Otherwise, it'd be really messy. So on current polling, the Tories should win this. However, Labour do seem to have made significant gains in areas like this. And if the Tories have a bad candidate and a load of scandals and Labour have a really good candidate, well, you never know. Alistair Jack next. And the Tories should be in a good position to win this seat as well, according to polling. But it will be of real interest because their main challenger is the SNP, not Labour or the Lib Dems. So it would be uncomfortable for Sunak because just as with Dorries' Bedfordshire seat, if he wins it, it's no big deal because he's supposed to win. It's a Tory seat, right? But if he loses it, absolute disaster for his authority and Tories will panic. But it will also put some interesting pressure on Humza Yousaf. Whether he'll welcome it or not, I don't know. He might do. See, the SNP on current polling would not be expected to win. But how much of a challenge can they make? That's what's interesting in Scotland against a party that's about as popular as a fart in a broken lift. And for both Sunak and Yousaf, eyes will be on vote share. Now, this isn't really technically fair in a by-election because the turnout will always be significantly lower than in a general election. But it will nonetheless be a live poll for a shootout between 2 political leaders who need to establish themselves. But the final seat is the real hot potato. Alex Sharma, the last, and his seat is currently polling a massive swing to Labour. Enough for not just Labour to win, but to win comfortably. And what will make this especially problematic for Sunak is that he will have to fight hard for all 3 seats. None of them are easy wins for him. There's 2 that he should win, but he's going to have to work for it. But the thing is, although Sunak will have to work hard for those 3 seats, neither the SNP nor Labour do. So they can focus more. The SNP, of course, will only be contesting 1 seat. So they can afford to go hard, pump all their most popular campaigners into that 1 seat, including on the day of polling itself, all the way up to it. It'll be worth the effort for yourself, because if he can even run it close, that will earn him some respect. And if he wins it, that will allow him a much needed victory. Labour, on the other hand, will of course stand a candidate in the seat, but they won't really expend much effort. It's not their fight. They could go hard in Bedfordshire, where Nadine Dorries would be stepping down. In fact, it might make more sense to pump most of their resources there, even though they're likely to lose, than the one that they're likely to win. But, because if they could win this one, and as I say, they have a good campaign up against a bad Tory campaign, a good candidate against a disinterested candidate. Because let's be honest, Nadine Dorries' seat is getting split up for the general election. So the Conservative candidate who stands and should win it it's not their seat for the general election, because it's getting split up. In fact, part of it, the safe part of it, is the one that David Frost apparently has his eye on. So they may not be all that interested either. They may not be able to get a committed candidate. So, the possibility that the Conservatives could actually lose that one due to a number of factors, absolutely massive. And it would give Starmer 2 conversions from Tory seats to Labour, and with what is considered a very safe seat into the bargain. Imagine how both Labour and the Conservatives would take that. And even if Labour don't win it, just making a really safe seat a close contest, that would put the wind up Tory MPs in much less safe seats, because there will be Tory MPs in seats that they think are safe. I mean, there's the ones in marginals, they're already crapping themselves. The ones that are in seats now that you think, well, this should be safe, this should be fine. If they see an even safer seat running close, they will get worried. The entire scenario is a nightmare for Rishi Sunak. If he cannot find a way to get the committee to change its mind, if he's lumbered with these 3 by-elections, let us consider the process. So, first of all, I don't know how quickly all of this is supposed to sort itself out, but I would imagine the by-elections would be autumn, because surely now we must be close to Boris Johnson's resignation honours list being implemented. Surely now. It was written ages ago. So I would imagine we're talking autumn here. If it's autumn, the NHS crisis will be getting worse. Migration numbers, well, they won't be pleasing the gammons. His 5 promises may well be looking decidedly shaky at this point, if they're not already. Sunak will be staring almost certain defeat in the face at least one of these 3 seats, so he's almost certain to lose at least 1 seat to Labour. Rational people will understand that Sharma's seat is not really winnable, and that the same would have been the case with Johnson or Truss or anyone else. But Tories are not sane people right now, and they've got their own agenda. Sunak's opponents will simplify the situation to, these are Tory seats, our boy Boris Johnson won them, and Rishi Sunak's lost them. If you reckon you're winning the next election, these should have remained Tory seats. Even a loss of vote share will be attacked mercilessly. And this may all be happening just in time for when, because at the end of October, it will only take 15% of Tory MPs to decide that actually they're not impressed with Sunak at all, submit letters, and then there's a confidence vote. That would damage him even if he wins it. He'd almost certainly win it. But it would still be damaging to have it. Sunak's problem, unless something radically changes with public perceptions between now and then, is that Labour will be fighting 2 of these seats, but the Tories will have to fight all 3. Labour will almost certainly be able to run a normal campaign. Of course, they'll run a campaign in Sharma's seat. They'll send their top brass there. Of course they will. But that should be a comfortable win, which leaves them to be able to go really hard in Dorries' seat in the hopes of at least running the Tories close, spreading panic on the government benches in Westminster. Sunak has to go hard in all 3 seats. He cannot hold back in any of them. Because although 2 look like wins on paper, not by enough to be complacent, he'll have to divert major resources to each. What funding will he have available to do it? They're a bit tight at the moment, and they you know, they need the money for the general election next year. Also consider the local elections. See, one problem, the Tories had a number of problems, but one problem was that very few prominent Tory MPs went out on the campaign trail. They couldn't be bothered. Greg Hands went out, the Tory chair, fine. Rishi Sunak did a bit. That was pretty much it. Some of them will even welcome a disaster in these by-elections. You know, I'll be discussing in another video this week how Suella Braverman's interests are completely unaligned with Sunak's. She won't be of any help. You know, Sunak will need his big guns turning out in all 3 seats, and all 3 seats will be contested on the same day. With the disunity within the party, the lack of faith from even MPs who understand that Sunak can't be replaced, and a growing sense that Labour are going to smash them at the next election, along with the tight campaign funds, which they really need for their war chest next year, and Sunak will be facing an absolute nightmare here. Just as with the local elections, there'll be no chance of a good result for them. It'll be all down to the expectation management. Can they explain to people that he can lose Sharma's seat and still be on course to win the next election? And will his expectation management, even if it works, still go wrong? Because the other problem is, you know, you can argue that local elections, these are a reflection of general election results. All right, fine. You can even try and argue that Westminster by-elections are not exactly a dummy run for the general election. It's like, well, yeah, okay, but fewer people will believe that. But if either the SNP win in Dumfries or Labour in Bedfordshire, then Sunak is going to be right up against it. It's hard to see how he keeps the rebels in check then. And what if he loses all 3? Because he has to fight hard in all of them, he has to split his resources. And Labour and the SNP, especially the SNP, can concentrate. Very interesting times coming. As I said, Sunak's best bet, and I'm sure this is what he'll be doing, he will be trying everything he can to get the House of Lords Appointments Committee to change their mind, as Johnson did. But Johnson did it for allowing unsuitable people into the Lords, not so much deferring appointments. So this may be too much. And if he can't, if these by-elections do land on his desk, that is another catastrophe to deal with on top of all the others. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.